Hello, my name is Kirioth, and oh my god, I come with good news, excellent news that by now you've probably already seen, but we're still going to talk about it because I'm genuinely happy, I'm chuffed, I'm impressed, because last week we talked about whether Games Workshop would mess up the release of the codexes, whether they would do what we were hoping they wouldn't do, which is just give the Imperium everything in the first year and leave all of the Xenos races to just sit there and hope that maybe they might get their codex eventually and just be stuck with indexes for the foreseeable future. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. So at the time, we looked at a couple of leaked lists which suggested what the codex releases would be. And there was also someone who said, no, neither of these lists are correct. Now, we use those as a basis for talking about what the possible order could be, why they might release stuff in a certain order, and I'm happy to say that neither of those lists were correct. The dude who said, no, those are wrong, is absolutely right, because we now know which 3 codexes will be coming out following Death Guard and Adeptus Mechanicus in September. This is quality, because before the end of November, we were going to get Codex Craftworlds and Codex Tyrannids. So that straight off the bat, that is two Xenos codexes being released at the same time, basically, in the same month. That is brilliant. That is genuinely really good, because, as we said at the time, or at least as I said at the time, you may have agreed with me, but yeah, a few people did, some people didn't. If they'd have just done Imperium, that would have been really sucky for everybody else. And no, I'm gonna go one step further than that. If they'd just done Imperium, that would have been really sucky for everybody, not just the people who don't play Imperium armies. I mean, obviously Chaos as well, because they've had a bit of love. But had it been just Imperium and Chaos, that would have been gash for everyone, because that means that the people who are using Xenos armies would not have had as much to play with. They wouldn't have had lists that are as good. They'd be missing stuff that every other army has got. That is not the case now. That is absolutely not the case. I mean, Tyrannids and Craftworlds at the same time is really good. Not just that, though. Not just that. We're going to be getting Astra Militarum as well. And I mean, the way it's phrased, next 3 codexes that will be following the release of Death Guard and Adeptus Mechanicus in September are, before the end of November, Codex Craftworlds, Codex Tyrannids, and Codex Astra Militarum. I mean, if that is all 3 of those codexes in 1 month, that's really good for a myriad of reasons. Firstly, we're not having the just purely Imperium focus, which is good. I know we are getting Imperial Guard in with it, but 1 Imperial Guard codex versus 2 Xenos codexes is, I'll take that. That's pretty good balance. It's 1 Imperium army for 2 non-Imperium armies, so I'll have that all day. It does show that they are not just going to focus on their bigger sellers, on their sort of Space Marine types. So that's obviously really good for the future, because we could be seeing more Xenos stuff before we see things like Space Wolves and Dark Angels and Blood. I want you people to have your codexes, obviously, but I also don't just want to see nothing but your codexes, if you get me. It also shows, with the fact that they're doing 3 codex releases at once, we might actually start to see an accelerated output now, because we've had like a couple of codexes at a time, or a couple of codexes very close to each other over the last few, but actually having 3 come out in the same month, that suggests to me that they've kind of sort of pushed the timetable forward a little bit. I was expecting to see 1 or 2 a month max until all of them are out, at which point they'd probably go back to the first ones that were published and start faffing about with those, because, well, you got to keep that cycle going, ain't you? Actually having 3 come out at once is very optimistic, I admit, and I don't have anything to base this on, only what they're going to be doing for November. But if they did release 3 a month from now until when all of them are out, we'd be getting them relatively quick, a lot quicker than I thought we would be. We'd be finished. What have we got left? We've got Dark Eldar, we've still got Necrons left, haven't we? Thousand Suns, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Sisters of Battle, maybe? I don't know, probably not. will Inquisition be its own codex? I don't know, but you get what I mean. It'll be way quicker doing 3 a month than it would be doing 2 a month, because in 2 months you'd have 6 instead of having 6 in 3. It would just be better. I'm really happy about this. I genuinely am, because this was something that I was getting concerned about, and when I say concerned about, I do mean it as a genuine thing, where I was kind of thinking to myself, if they do just not bother with trying to release xenos stuff quickly, the player base as a whole is going to get pretty fucking bored pretty quick, because when you don't release codexes for certain armies, you kind of, the playing field isn't level right now. I mean, I know that the index is supposed to tide you over, but you know, some armies have got codexes, other armies have just got indexes, and the codexes are undeniably massively more fleshed out. You have access to more stuff, you just do. And putting players in that kind of unbalanced position, it's not just bad in terms of, you know, you're angering the people who don't yet have their codex. It's also bad because it just creates uneven matches, it creates uneven fights. It means that the people who actually have their codexes, if they do play against armies that are still with indexes, it's not going to feel as good. Like, it's just not going to feel as satisfying. You're not going to get that sense of 2 even forces fighting each other, because you're going to know that, oh well, I mean, I had all of this stuff, they didn't have any of this stuff. Maybe that contributed to why they lost, or alternatively, they didn't have access to anywhere near as much good stuff as me. Why did I lose? It creates a playing field that isn't balanced, and I know saying balanced is kind of funny in 40k, because there's a certain cycle that seems to come round where certain armies are massively more powerful than others, or get nerfed into the floor so they just shit against everybody. But whilst balance is difficult to achieve, the illusion of balance isn't that difficult to achieve, and it is very important, especially when you have a hobby that is reliant on face-to-face interaction, that is reliant on usually playing against the same group of people. Like, it's not common, I would suggest, to have someone who plays 40k regularly who is playing a brand new person every week, for instance. When it comes to a hobby that is this personal, when I say physical, I mean you have to actually go to someone, either at a local game store or at a big gaming hall, or just to someone's house. When you have that kind of, that personal nature, having a split between people who have got the thing that makes their army what it should be, compared to the person who has the thing that just makes their army work for the moment, it creates an unbalanced feeling that, frankly, people get sick of. So, I'm genuinely really, really chuffed with this. It does irk me a little that it's taken this long to have some decent, I say some decent Xenos, just some Xenos stuff come out at all. I can understand the route that they've gone. Like, don't get me wrong, I do understand why they released stuff in the order they did, and a little part of me, I'll be honest, is kind of like, well, they'll have got all the big releases out of the way now. They'll have got the ones that people were really, really talking about. Like, I mean, let's face it, Space Marines was always going to be up there, but by the time you get Death Guard out of the way, by the time you get even just Chaos as a whole, people have been really, really unhappy with the way that Codex worked out last edition, just because of how fucking spread out and god-awful it was. When you look at how many supplements there were, and how a lot of them didn't really do anything to fix the core problems with the army, I would have classed that as a fairly big release. I would say that Chaos Space Marines was a fairly hefty thing to come out with, and that actually releasing it relatively early was a sensible thing to do, because let's face it, people were not happy with the old state of affairs with that. It does feel like now we're at a point where it's kind of, the big stuff has come out, the stuff that really needed altering, really needed changing, the stuff that people had really complained about seems to be out of the way. I do feel like we've had a couple of fillers, like Grey Knights, for instance. That almost felt like a filler, if that makes sense. It didn't have much of an impact from what I saw. Not a lot of people were talking about it. Now, that could just be because there aren't that many Grey Knights players, or it could be that they didn't actually need to change that much to make that effective. But I'm just glad they're going the right way about it, to be honest. I would have liked to have seen this stuff a bit earlier. Like, I would have liked to have seen, especially Eldar, a bit earlier, especially with the part they played in the Gathering Storm. But I'm happy to actually see that they are dumping out 2 Xenos codexes at once, and I really hope that trend continues. I hope they're able to keep up the 3 codex sort of release schedule, and I hope they do start pushing out Xenos really quite urgently. They do make up a good half of the universe at 40k, and you know, they need the representation from the company and not just from the players. So let's hope they continue on with this. There isn't much specific information right now. This is mostly just a thank God they're doing the right thing, whilst also inevitably bitching about something they did in the past because it's Games Workshop, and who can help themselves really. But yeah, I'm pleased, I'm happy, and long may the Xenos double release schedule continue for the foreseeable future until everything's out. Thank you very much, Games Workshop. Keep it up. Don't mess it up. Don't do that. No one likes it when you mess it up. Anyway, if you enjoyed that video, then there's other stuff to click all over the screen. You know the drill. There's Patreon, there's a subscribe thing, there's all kinds of stuff. There's some extra stuff about Patreon, which you'll find out about on Tuesday, on Tuesday's video. I won't do it now, because screw it. Watch on Tuesday, it's fine. And in the meantime, no, you've already done that bit. I'll just see you next time. Toodaloo.